Hello again, it's me. So we've been reading Wish by Barbara O'Connor. We are already on chapter 10. I cannot believe that we are already on chapter 10 of this book. So I'm excited to see what's going to happen to Charlie today. She's really making a friend with Howard, and I think that's great. I think that's great for her. And they're on the hunt and coming up with a plan to find Wishbone. They really want to find Wishbone, the dog. So let's see if they do or how close they get to finding Wishbone today. Chapter 10. When I got home, I told Gus and Bertha about Howard's plan to catch Wishbone. We're going to build a great big trap, I said, stretching my arms out to show how big, with chicken wire from his daddy's workshop. Gus's eyebrows shot up. A trap, huh? I nodded. Well, kind of. More like one of those big dog crates. We're going to put it out at the edge of the woods beside the garden shed. We're going to stick branches and leaves and stuff in the chicken wire so it blends in. I went on to explain how we're going to put something good to eat inside the crate when Wishbone went to eat it. We'd close the door. He likes meatloaf, Bertha said, and hot dogs and bologna. She tossed a couple pieces of fish stick left over from supper onto the floor for the two cats. Now, I don't want to rain on your parade, Charlie, but what if that dog isn't friendly to people? What if it bites? What if he has some kind of dog disease? He won't bite. He likes me, I said, ignoring the question about dog disease. Gus, Bertha said, tell Charlie about that dog you had when you were a kid. And then she went on and told me about Gus's dog named Skeeter, who used to catch rabbits and bring them home for Gus and his sisters to play with. And one time he climbed in the back of a produce truck and ended up all the way down in Hendersonville and showed up on the front porch the next day full of porcupine quills. Right, Gus? Gus nodded. Right. And then one time he dug up a hornet's nest, Bertha said. That dog must have had 9 lives like a cat. Must have, Gus said. Tell her about how he waited for you outside school every day. Bertha scooped one of the cats onto her lap. Oh, and tell her about how he used to steal chicken livers right out of the frying pan. We're going to bore this poor child to death, Bertie, he said, winking at me. Right, Butterbean? Gus had started calling me Butterbean sometimes. That made me feel like a baby, but I didn't say anything. Then Bertha told us about some woman in the grocery store who fainted in the cereal aisle, but I wasn't really listening because I was thinking about Wishbone. I pictured him waiting at school for me every day. Then he'd run along beside the school bus like he'd done that day I saw him fighting. Maybe the bus driver would let him on the bus because he was so smart and would do tricks for all the kids. He'd sleep in my bed every night, and I'd sing Good Old Noah to him. He'd let me put Jackie's Raleigh High School t-shirt on him and maybe even paint his toenails red. I'd teach him to go up to the end of the driveway on Sunday mornings and get the newspaper before church. He'd chase rabbits out of the garden and sit out on the porch with us every night. I still had a little niggle about Mama having a hissy fit when I brought him back to Raleigh with me, but I pushed that aside. By the time Bertha went inside to get a box of graham crackers for us, I was so in love with Wishbone I couldn't hardly stand it. I sure hoped Howard's plan worked. Let's go get the sprinkler set up in the garden, Gus said to me, tugging on his dirty baseball cap. I followed him outside with 3 cats sauntering along behind us. I helped him untangle the hose and drag it out to the garden. While he attached the sprinkler to it, I walked up and down the tidy rows of pole beans and squash and tomato plants growing bigger every day. The soft dirt was warm under my bare feet. Suddenly, a ladybug landed on my arm. I put my finger next to it and let it climb on. Then I held my finger up and whispered, Ladybug, ladybug, fly away home. As I watched that little ladybug fly off into the sky, I made my wish. Jackie called again that night. She told me she had put those blue streaks in her hair, and now everybody at school was copying her. I swear, Charlie, she said, everybody in Raleigh's got blue streaks in their hair. Then she told me she met some boy who played guitar in a band and had his nose pierced. His name was Cockroach, and her sort of boyfriend. Arlo didn't like him. Cockroach? I said, because what else can you say to that? But she just kept on talking. She couldn't wait to graduate and kiss that school goodbye. She and some girl named Shayla might move to Fort Lauderdale if Shayla's uncle could get them jobs in his Mexican restaurant. But if that didn't happen, she might go to school to be a dental assistant. She sure had a lot of plans, but it seemed like none of them included me. Are you going to come visit me sometime? I asked in a tiny voice that sounded like a baby. Of course I am, Charlie, she said, as soon as I get time. I guess she had lots of time for Cockroach, but not much time for me. Out on the porch that night, Bertha told Gus about her day, while I sent my thoughts zipping through the trees to wherever Wishbone was. I wanted him to know he didn't have to be a stray like me. I wanted him to be mine. Then my mind wandered to the Odoms. I wondered what they were doing that very minute. I bet they were all piled on pillows on the floor, eating popcorn and playing crazy eights. I bet Miss Odom was taping their school papers up on the wall and telling them how proud of them she was. Then she'd have to say rutabaga, so Cotton would stop drawing on the wall with markers. Gus interrupted my thoughts when he stood up and stretched and said, "Time to turn in." I hated the thought of another day at school, that awful bus with gum on the seats and kids snickering when I walked by, Miss Willoughby frowning at me and tossing my marked-up papers on my desk with a sigh, the cafeteria kids flinging peas at each other and ignoring me. There were only a few more weeks of school, but it felt like 100 years to me. There was no doubt about it. I needed Wishbone more than ever. So there is chapter 10. We will read chapter 11 on Monday. And so they still haven't trapped Wishbone yet, but they have a plan. They're making a trap to try to catch him. And she's really hoping that they do catch him. And she's upset with her sister because her sister has a boyfriend now and isn't thinking about spending any time with her. So Charlie's having a rough time right now. She's in a situation that's less than favorable for her. And she's really struggling with it. She thinks that Wishbone is going to help make her feel better. And well, if she does get him, I hope he does make her feel better. Sometimes it's so nice, like if any of you that have pets, it does make you feel good to pet your cat or your dog and snuggle with them. And they do have a way of making us feel better, don't they? I know mine does. My Bella is usually pretty close to my side, and she is, well, she's a great companion, and that's why a lot of people do like pets. Some don't, and that's okay too. All right, so have a good afternoon. I miss you all. Talk to you on Monday. Join the Zoom meeting. It's going to be great to see everyone. Bye. Have a good weekend.